Yo, yo.
What's going on, everybody?
Another live stream for you guys. Bitcoin Bros coming in. Just got back from the Bitcoin conference. Uh, Shout out all that came in attendance. We met a lot of beautiful people. Um, it was a good time.
Definitely might have been a lot of interesting people working in the Bitcoin and crypto space. Hopefully, we can have some of those people we met join the podcast in the future, and they can talk a little bit about what they've been doing. So that's hopefully going to be coming for you guys. But if you guys are new here, we have live streams every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That's Thursday. Today was Friday. We just had to move it to the Friday because we've been at the Bitcoin conference over the past couple of days and didn't have a chance to live stream while we were there. But we're going to be getting into strategy today, looking at some charts, Bitcoin strategic reserves from company side, proof of reserves from strategy. There's been a lot of debate on whether or not strategy should show their proof of reserves. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. Then there's been some big news from GameStop coming out of Texas and some other news that we'll be going over towards the end of the live stream. So that's everything we'll be getting into today. We're going to start with the charts from Sean. So let's go ahead and jump into it.
Give me 1 second. And before we get started, anything that we talk about is not financial advice. This is just ideas from two guys on the internet. So do your own due diligence, do your own research. Before we get into the charts, let me share my screen really quick. There's just one thing that I would like to share. If you guys did not make it out to the Bitcoin conference, they made an announcement during the conference that they'll be doing it in Las Vegas again in 2026. So, we definitely encourage anybody that wasn't able to make it to, try, to make it out there for next year. It's definitely a fun time. You meet a lot of people in the space, a lot of interesting people, a lot of people working on, projects and things in the crypto space with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency that you really can't really imagine unless you see it for yourself. So definitely encourage you guys to check it out. So yeah, it's April 27th through 29th next year. You can already go out here and buy your tickets. But so just getting into it, let's take a look at the Bitcoin price chart. Make sure that the right chart's showing. All right, there we go. So right now, at the current time I'm recording, we did have a pullback. We had a pullback. We're right above 104. So what do we see? What's going to happen? So right now we are above, previous resistance levels. This is on the weekly chart. And looking at these candle closes back in December of 2024, is there any cause for concern? Is there something to pay attention to? So if you look at this level right here where this white line is drawn, where these two back-to-back candle bodies closed back in December of 2024, is around the 104.5K range. And as you see, we blasted up through that, and now we had a retracement and are currently below it. Now, is that something that, is the bull market over with? It's not over with until it is, but right now, the next level to pay attention to on the downside is the 102.4, 102.5K range. If we do break that orange line right below, theoretically, where could we go as far as, depths in the chart? We theoretically could come down back to the 80K range. Not saying that's going to happen, but if you zoom out on the chart and look at it from more of a macro lens, you come up, you put in a higher high, a higher low, a higher high, and coming back down to the mid 80 range or, high 80 range, that will be put in a higher low. So that's not, out the realm of possibility. Not saying that's to happen, but that's just something to be mindful of. if it does occur, if you're playing with leverage, just make sure your risk adjustment and risk portfolio is fit for that scenario if that plays out. But right now we are still holding above this orange line, the 102.4 range. We did break this previous resistance from the 104.5K. This candle body hasn't closed yet. We still have a few more days. So, as you know, Bitcoin's volatile. We could come back up and get back up to 106 within the next hour during this live stream. So that's something just to, once again, be mindful of. So that's on the weekly. If we look out on the monthly, the higher time frame, the monthly is actually still putting in a higher high. The level to pay attention to, once again, is that 102.4, 102.5 range. So we have a few days left in the month. Right now it's the 30th. We got today and then tomorrow. So when this candle body closes, even if we have a retracement going into June and come back down to the 102.5 range and potentially a wick below, we would have a candle body close from previous resistance right here on that 102.5 range. So things are looking healthy in the charts. We do believe that the bull market is not over with yet. Some people are calling for tops, looking at sort of similar fractal patterns from the previous cycle. If we zoom out, this is on the monthly chart once again. Let me zoom into the 2021 run up and where we currently are right now. So if we look in this area right here, there is some similarities in the charts, but you sort of got to take that with a grain of salt because it's not exactly the same. It's not apples to apples. You see how much we ran up here and had that parabolic blow off top from 10,000 all the way up to ultimately 69,000 and putting that double peak before we seen a multi-year bear cycle. So we did have a rally from the depths of the bear market, but we are right now sitting above macro resistance. As you see, we hit our head once, twice here. Third time, fourth time was the charm. We broke through it, came back and did a textbook back test, and then a continuation to the upside. So we believe there's more steam in this continuation to the upside movement right now. And also looking at this shoulder, this macro head, another shoulder that looks like an inverse head and shoulders pattern or a cup and handle pattern with a textbook breakout, back testing previous resistance, flip to support. So things are still looking healthy on the macro lens. Even though we put in a higher high here and the charts were showing bearish divergence, that was the bull market. People are saying, well, look, if this candle closes here, it's a higher high, bullish divergences, but we don't sort of buy into that narrative. We still think there's a lot more time not a lot more time. We've been in the bull market, but there's still more room for the upside. So that's what we see with Bitcoin. MicroStrategy. Let's take a look at strategy. And strategy, a lot of people are getting impatient because you're seeing some of these Bitcoin treasury companies come into play, and we just want to put this in context for you guys. So MicroStrategy's overall Bitcoin holding is almost up to 600,000 Bitcoin. And it's 100 billion plus overall market cap. Since it has adopted the Bitcoin strategy to acquire as much Bitcoin as humanly possible, they've went from around a $1 billion valuation up to where they are right now. And it's been over 100x in overall market cap and company valuation. So just have a understanding when you're talking about company valuation, to go from 1 billion to 100 billion, that can happen a lot faster than 100 billion to $1 trillion. Do we believe that the market cap for MicroStrategy is going to go past $1 trillion in the future? 100%. Yes, we believe that. But, it's growing in size. So as you have a bigger freight train versus a nimble speedboat, it's going to cause a lot more energy to get that train to continue to chug along the tracks. So going from 100 to 200 billion, that's a 2x. 100 to 1 trillion is a 10x versus 100x. But to get that 10x, there's a lot more energy. There's a lot more, momentum that needs to be had to be able to push this train up the track. So people just need to sort of let Michael Saylor and his team, continue to execute and implement what they're doing. They've revolutionized the space. They've set the blueprint. You're seeing companies like MetaPlanet, Saylor Scientific, the blockchain group. We'll look at those charts as well. But that they have set the benchmark or strategy set the benchmark for these companies. So these companies are more nimble because they don't have more assets on their balance sheet. They don't have a lot more tool sets to worry about as far as moving money around. They're more nimble, and that's not a bad thing because from an investment stance, you can get those quick returns. I believe MetaPlanet and also the blockchain group, they've done 100x over the past year. So you'll see those 100x's because if you're a $1 to $2 million overall valuation to go to $100 million valuation, that's 100x right there. So you're talking about 100 billion plus for MicroStrategy. They have to acquire a lot more Bitcoin. Bitcoin has to go up, a lot more for them to even get a 2x versus in comparison to some of these smaller companies to do a 2 or 3x, if that makes sense. But back to the charts. We've been looking at the Fisher indicator, and if you see every time the blue line crosses over the orange or red line, you see that we have somewhat of a pullback in price or some type of sideways consolidation into a channel before we then ultimately rip up and see higher. So right now, this does look like some type of flag pattern that we did break out of. This is on the 3-day chart. And could we ultimately come back down and back test this? Once again, it's all indicative of what Bitcoin does. But yeah, that could be. It took some time for us to break out this channel. So, that's valid. Like this could come down and have a back test and then a bump and run to the upside before strategy continues. Is that guaranteed to happen? No. Once again, if Bitcoin, breaks support, we could see strategy come down and do that. Not saying it's guaranteed because this could curl back up and then put in another high. Looking at the RSI did put in a divergence, but this also could have a continuation to the upside as well. Or we could get a little bit of a cool off, and the level to pay attention to at the RSI is the 43 level. Let's just draw this horizontal just so we can continue to track it week over week while we do these live streams. But right here, you see that line. That line's sort of been respected through the bull market, 43. So if we have a dip below that, that's, maybe a little bit of cause for concern, but everything's looking healthy right here. If you don't have a position, it's, nice time to start DCAing in. If you haven't, this was obviously the best time to start buying at the low 200s. And we were also calling for that in our channel. But, everything looks healthy. Upside target, if we do see a continuation where this technical target comes up to, let's just pull this flag pattern. If this is some type of flag pattern, let's not extend this. And then let's pull this up to the lowest touch of the downward support. This could be saying that strategy's technical target could be going up to $1,000 plus, and that's being conservative because you could measure this from the top actually of this breakout. So, keep in mind, there's a lot more gas in the tank for the overall market, but once again, it's all indicative of what Bitcoin does. Just check the Bitcoin price chart. We did fall below 104. Once again, don't panic. Everything's still intact until it's not. We'll be reporting on that if that comes to light. The next chart to look at, we're looking at MetaPlanet. The ticker is 350. This is the Japanese ticker. So if you see these numbers over here, that's why this is in yen. You can also look at MTPLF. These are going to be in lockstep, pretty much looking the same. But the numbers are going to be different because this is in US dollars versus 3350 being in the yen. We look at both, but 3350 has more price data to go off of. So, looking at what we see, we could see some sideways consolidation or maybe some downwards chop. It could be some lower price action, which could be some optimal buy entries to get in. Once again, you have to look at Bitcoin with all these Bitcoin treasury companies, all these Bitcoin proxies, because Bitcoin is going to it's the biggest ship in the sea. It's going to pull everything up with it, but it also will do the inverse. So Bitcoin, say the top is hypothetically in. We don't believe that, but if it is, there's going to be a lot cheaper MetaPlanet strategy and whatever other pick your Bitcoin treasury of choice company. It's going to be a lot cheaper prices if Bitcoin does go into a bear market. But once again, that's not our sentiment. But just looking at the trend's your friend to the end. The Fisher indicator is still, seems like there might be some more steam to go to the upside a little bit. We seem to have a topping out pattern, no divergence as of yet with the RSI. So that seems it's pretty healthy. So this chart, if we do have a drawback and we come back down to this upward support that we've been respecting since March of last year, if it came back down here by the middle of June, you'd be looking at about a 700 yen target, which as far as what that is in US dollars, let me just do that conversion really quick. Give me 1 second. So that's about a $4.85 US dollar price target if we does have a pullback and this respects this. Note, we actually did fall out of this channel right back here in March. So, could that happen again? Yeah, that could definitely happen. So, it could go below 485, but that's what we see for MetaPlanet as of now. And then the next chart to look at, Blockchain Group. We actually had the opportunity to speak to the CEO of Blockchain Group. Hopefully we'll be able to get him on the channel in the near future. Sorry, I was just catching up on the chat. Didn't know if there's any questions really quick.
Keep going, bro.
Okay, all good. So Blockchain Group, we have had a euphoric rise. So things that, rise fast will have some consolidation or some potential pullbacks. As you look here, since July of last year, not even over a 12-month window, it's been about a 39x. It went from 8 cents up to a high of almost $4. And this is in euros. So keep that in mind as well if you are invested into this. Once again, looking at the RSI, we do not see any divergences, but we are in extreme overbought territory. We did have a pullback. If we look back to the left of the chart, this yellow dotted line here, let me clean this chart up because there's a lot going on here. But if you see this yellow dotted line right here, this acted as resistance, and then we had a fall down / buying opportunity in mid 2024, and then had this euphoric run since they've been doing their Bitcoin strategy. Now the price has definitely ran to the upside. So if we do get a back test of this, the level to pay attention to would be 2.25 euro, that range. That could be a load up zone. Could we fall below this? Yes. And could it still be a buying opportunity? That's also a yes. And once again, this is not financial advice. This is what the Bitcoin bros are looking at. But a level to pay attention to below this dotted yellow line would be the $1.45 range. Because as you see, there was some brief support here in the charts. And once we fell through that, we came back and back tested this and didn't have a successful rally and then fell down. So that's another major level to pay attention to if this original dotted line does not hold. So that's what we see right now. Could we get some consolidation in the charts? Could we get continuation of a parabolic rally? Both answers are yes. Once again, it's all indicative of what Bitcoin does and how fast Bitcoin goes up to the $120, $150, $200,000 price target. So we just covered Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, MetaPlanet, and the blockchain group. If you guys want us to go over anything else in next week's live stream as far as a Bitcoin treasury company, just make sure that you throw it in the chat. I don't know if you had anything to add to there, Aaron.
Nothing from the charts. I do want to address a comment from earlier in the stream. As you can see, this one here. Not going to read it, but just looking at the strategy website right now. I mean, what else are you going to invest in? Over the past 3 months, we're up 44%. Past year, we're up 139%. That's more than a 2x over the past year. You go 5 years out, we're at like 2,500%. So this isn't a short-term play. Strategy has been, sideways here over the past month, maybe down. But this is a long-term play, guys. It's not going to be going, crazy. Next week we don't know where it's going to be. It could be down or it's up. We're going to still have volatility, but I think people just need to get into a long-term holder kind of focus. This company is going to be going to $1 trillion market cap, and then potentially one of the biggest companies in the world. So there's a lot of room to grow. If you're holding strategy and you're disappointed in the price action, you should be happy right now because price is going down. It's like with Bitcoin. 1 Bitcoin's equal to 1 Bitcoin. When the price comes down, you can use less of your fiat to get more Bitcoin. So you should actually be happy right now that strategy is still below $400 and you're getting it at a deal. And there's just a huge catalyst coming over the next year, potentially over the next 3 months with the S&P inclusion. We're not covering that today, but we talked about that in the past. So, I think people that have these short-term mindsets, you're going to lose if you can't handle the volatility. Strategy might not be for you. Especially these other Bitcoin proxy companies like the blockchain group or MetaPlanet. They're going to be just as volatile as strategy. So if you can't handle that volatility, maybe you can handle Bitcoin's volatility because it's not as much as those companies. And if not, maybe you need to invest in something else. Not financial advice, though. Just wanted to kind of address that comment because I don't know. It's funny that people talk about the performance, but in the past 3 months, what's outperformed strategy over the past 3 months? Not much of anything. So
yeah, we have about 59 people in the chat. Make sure you go ahead and like this, share with your friends. We appreciate all your guys' support. Strategy is the biggest player in the game. They've set the benchmark for all these other Bitcoin treasury companies. And as I mentioned, it's the biggest boat in the sea. There's other small tugboats. There's other jet skis, people that are just going to start with their Bitcoin treasury. That's a good analogy, a way to think of it. And if you're on a jet ski and you're just starting your Bitcoin treasury, you're going to see a pop in your market capitalization when there's an announcement. We've mentioned this being sort of like the coin listing, when Binance started to list coins and Coinbase, listed other new coins. We see an initial pop in, the market cap and the price because of the euphoria and the excitement. So we're seeing that now at the Bitcoin treasury companies. And it's a lot easier for a $1 million valuation company to go to 10 million when you're doing this strategy. So that's a quick 10x. So you're seeing that with some of these, MTPLF, MetaPlanet. You're seeing some of these other companies that have scaled very quickly over the last 12 months. Strategies that benchmark, they've set the roadmap and the gameplay for how these companies should do that. And, they're implementing, they're executing. There's good promise for, some of these players that are, following strategies, Bitcoin strategy. But, for the biggest boat in the harbor to even turn, it just takes a little bit more time, a little bit more energy because there's a lot more capital, behind that particular vehicle. Just keep that in mind.
Cool. Let's go ahead and get into the Bitcoin proxy company. I'll go ahead and share this. Let me share quick. I'm going to go through just some recent companies that have been doing some Bitcoin buying over the past couple of days. I think this is really one of the only things you should be paying attention to is the companies that are buying Bitcoin for the long term. Obviously, some of these companies are just doing this for, to increase their stock price, or they may be doing this very risky, but the adoption that you see is just crazy across the world. I mean, you have BitMax here, Korean company, they just added an additional 35 Bitcoin. We go to the next one, we have Kango Group, another company, they added, or this is a crypto miner, but they output 109 Bitcoin and they increased their total holdings to 3,300 BTC. So some of the miners aren't selling their Bitcoin, they're mining it and putting it in long-term storage. And Kango is not the only miner that's doing that. Another company here, a small Bitcoin buy, 1.85 H100 group, but now they have 6 BTC. And I'm just going to quickly go through all these companies because it's just so many now. You have ANAP, looks like they're a Japanese company. They now have a total of 102 Bitcoin, just picked up another 15. Norway listed company, $6.2 million. And this is all over the past 2 or 3 days, guys. K33, they raised $6.2 million to buy more Bitcoin. You have another company here. They have 10. They're now holding 10 Bitcoin. They added another 5 BTC. So you can see just how many companies are, adopting this long-term Bitcoin strategy. You have another company here. This is SmarterWeb. They acquired another 24 Bitcoin. They hold 83. Jet King, they acquired 6 BTC. And then you have Trump Media. They just raised $2.5 billion, and they're going to be using those proceeds to buy Bitcoin. So you can see what's going on here, and this is a really cool website. We've showed this in the past, bitcointreasuries.net, but you can see here that you have public companies, exchanges, DeFi, smart contracts, ETF funds, governments. They currently have 3.38 million Bitcoin, and it's up over the past 30 days. So as long as you can continue to see this number go up, this means institutional adoption is continuing to buy, or is continuing to increase, and they're continuing to buy Bitcoin. So this is probably one of the only things you want to pay attention to. As long as this continues to go up, the price of Bitcoin is going to be volatile because of leverage trading and so many other reasons. It trades 24/7. Some news can make it trade down, some good news can make it trade up. But if you just continue to see the Bitcoin treasuries continuing to pick up more BTC, that's a good indicator of where Bitcoin's going for the long term. Because a lot of these companies, a lot of these ETFs, governments, they're not buying Bitcoin, and they're not going to be trading it for other altcoins. They're going to be buying it for the long term. So you can see where all the adoption is going, and it's going to Bitcoin over the long term. So, yeah, anything to add there, Sean?
Yeah. So I know probably most of the viewers aren't publicly listed founders of companies or on an executive staff. So what can you take away from this? A few things. The first thing is that there is mass adoption at a high level from institutional grade players that are coming in and buying up. The supply of Bitcoin is just getting demolished right now from the ETFs, these public companies, private companies, countries, all of the above. So that's the first thing. Then you have Bitcoin OGs like Adam Beck that, says, Bitcoin's easily going to go to $1 million. And it's the basic law of scarcity and supply and demand. There's not enough Bitcoin to go around for all these big players. This is just starting. So 10x is being conservative. So that's the first thing to take away. The second thing to take away is the same way these Bitcoin treasury companies have sort of mimicked what strategy has done and what Michael Saylor has basically taught them how to do and showed them how to do. You can implement that in your own personal life. You can be your own Bitcoin treasury company, but you as an individual. And what that looks like, you don't need to be publicly listed. You can have your own business if you're incorporated. That's a different conversation. But just as far as the same way these companies are starting to accumulate Bitcoin, you can do a dollar cost average, obviously on a smaller scale. You don't think of it in one whole term. Think of it as in just a piggy bank. Think of it as savings. Don't think of saving in US dollars. Over time, $1 in Bitcoin is going to accrue faster than anything else you put that dollar into. I just want to show this chart, well, not chart, but just some quick math really quick on what this actually means. Share my screen really quick. Make sure I get the right slide here. So shout out to Bitcoin Memes IRL. They pulled this together, but this is just some simple math based on something Michael Saylor said. We expect Bitcoin to go up 29% year over year for the next 21 years. So right now, you can say just, do use round numbers. Bitcoin last year hit $100,000. So if this continues to hold true, just do simple calculations. 29% year over year. This year, we should see 129,000. Now, this might fall a little bit short. This could overextend, but the numbers are just going to sort of average over time. But this is the law of compounding numbers, where $100,000, when you look out over just a 10-year window from 2024 to 2034, you see 29% year over year gets you up to 1.2 million. So that sort of goes with, what Adam Beck says is going to happen pretty easily. But then, if you look out the next decade, this is where the numbers get, extremely to the upside, and people really can't fathom these numbers. But to look at where the price is right now, just to say 100,000, to get to where this is right now, let me just do some quick math to see what that multiple would be. I think it'd be that's 160x. So for every dollar that you invest right here, and you can buy Bitcoin as little as $5 or $10, that could be your weekly dollar cost average strategy. Buying $5 a week, $10 a week, $50 a week, $100 a week, $1,000 a week, $5 a day, whatever you want to do. It's going to be different for you versus, what it is for me and the next person. But you see, for every dollar you add into your new piggy bank, that dollar turns into $161 with 160x. So just keep that in mind. That's sort of what we're trying to sort of, preach here is that, it's not, you don't have to get one whole Bitcoin. You don't even look at the actual, that's a good goal to have, but just when you start to save in the fastest horse over time, it's the same concept, but on steroids. It's like a 401k plan for those that have a 401k. You don't see that money, the money doesn't hit your paycheck, and it gets pulled out and it gets invested into you. Well, this is you sort of taking control, being your own bank, having your new piggy bank, your new savings account, new checking account, and now just the money that you don't need, you just put it over here. So you fast forward X amount of years, there's going to be a multiple of what you put away, and that's sort of how you got to think of it.
Totally agree with you there. Forgot to say though, Tether, they own over 100,000 Bitcoin. They came out with the Bitcoin conference and they presented that. So that's pretty cool to see. Got a stablecoin giant. They're just a profit machine, and they're buying more and more Bitcoin. But we'll talk about GameStop here next. So I'll give my thoughts, and Sean, you can give your thoughts after. But GameStop, they just purchased 4,700 BTC, and I think it's good to see for Bitcoin that GameStop is purchasing. It's good for Bitcoin that GameStop is purchasing Bitcoin, but I don't think GameStop is going to be looked at as like the next strategy, and I don't think they're going to get a lot of people selling their MSTR to buy GameStop. I don't see them trying to copy what strategy is doing. I think they're just going to slowly accumulate Bitcoin over time and just have a Bitcoin strategic reserve, which is really good for GameStop, and I think that's going to help them out in the future. But in terms of them, taking all their cash and putting it in Bitcoin and really just being this Bitcoin only company. I don't think we're going to see that from GameStop, and I don't think we're going to see the volatility in the stock like what we see in Strategy and some of these other Bitcoin proxy companies like MetaPlanet. We're not going to see that in GameStop, so I don't think we'll see some of the products that Strategy has come out with, like a Strike or a Strife. We won't see GameStop do that, but I think we may see them do some more converts in the future to raise money. It's really interesting because I think they raised 1.4 billion and only bought around $500 million worth of Bitcoin. And they weren't very transparent at the price they bought it at, which was a letdown. Their earnings is coming up on June 6th, so we'll get more insight onto everything going on with GameStop. But I think that people, especially in the Bitcoin space, aren't going to be looking at GameStop to like they look at something like a Strategy. I think GameStop's going to be looked at more as just a company that accumulates Bitcoin and has a strong strategic reserve over time, which will help them just because they hold Bitcoin. But I don't think people are going to speculate on it. And I don't think the volatility is going to be there for them like it is some of these other companies.
Yeah, I agree. So they did have a lot more cash they could have spent. So I didn't agree with how much little they spent. There was a lot of people at the Bitcoin conference that was saying they just sort of dipped their toe in the water and they're not going, full, 100% into Bitcoin, the same capacity that you're seeing other companies do, like MetaPlanet, Blockchain Group, or how Saylor did for years. So there was a lot of letdown from that perspective, but I think people need to sort of, once again, zoom out. They bought over 4,000 Bitcoin. GameStop had that euphoria a few years ago with Roaring Kitty and that whole, run up in the price and how that played out. So there's a lot of faithful GameStop hodlers, a lot of people that actually like the stock, maybe not so much the company. So this is still the early innings of Bitcoin acquisition for these Bitcoin treasuries. I would like to see what the year over year, 5-10 year game plan is for Ryan Cohen at GameStop. Is he going to still have the underlying company that's still in place? Now they had to digitize a good portion of that because, as there's a lot of gamers that do just the streaming and not so much going in and buying the actual physical games anymore. The way that business model works is got flipped upside down as of late. So is the overall intention to make GameStop a true Bitcoin treasury company? Always hold on to the underlying company, what that looks like. Do they have a roadmap like some of these other companies have as far as acquiring X amount of Bitcoin over the next year, 3-5 years, what that looks like for them? I think it's too early to tell, but as far as making short-term trades on, the volatility of GameStop, if he would have came out and spent all their cash into it and, had 10, 20, 30,000 Bitcoin, whatever that would have bought, I think there'd be a lot more excitement right now around GameStop space. But that doesn't mean that they can't get up to that level and, make it make sense as far as a long-term, investment opportunity. Just wanted to share this really quick, and this was sort of impromptu because I just looked at the chart. Haven't really looked at this GameStop chart. Let me share up this really quick. So looking at GameStop really quick, guys, this looks like, since 2020, this was sort of the mania that we were talking about with Roaring Kitty, and the price went all the way up. And then Robinhood pulled the plug. So you guys know what happened. And then sort of just been in some downwards consolidation / chop. Looks like a big bull pennant that, where the target that goes up to is like $1,300. It'll probably split before then if this target does get hit. And can this get hit? Yeah, that's roughly like a 42, 43x from where right now. So you have to think of it like this. Look at GameStop's valuation. look at the underlying asset, how many Bitcoin they continue to buy. If they do continue to buy Bitcoin going to 500,000, $1 million, $2 million, 5 million, 10 million, and then just do the math, and you can see what their company valuation of the underlying assets will be. And as that price, is accretive, it will then be a premium marked on top of that, because there will be some people that get into this and have this excitement into it if it does start to sort of trend up towards this target. So right now it's a little bit too early to tell what the overall agenda is for GameStop and what Ryan Cohen has up his sleeve. He's pretty close-lipped, which, a lot of these other Bitcoin treasury companies have been a little bit more transparent. So, just a little bit more transparency, I think, from what the GameStop team's doing, I would like to see. But, it's still early. They have time to, lay that out, lay that roadmap out. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some more transparency at the earnings call next week. So we'll see exactly what their strategy is going forward. But let's go ahead and discuss the proof of reserve kind of debate that everybody was having over on Twitter, whether strategy should have a website or something that shows their proof of reserves, or should they just continue to do what they've been doing. There's been a lot of noise from, I would say, maybe some Bitcoin maximalists who are kind of concerned that strategy's been buying all this Bitcoin, but they don't actually have it. So from our perspective, Strategy is a publicly traded company. They go through, Big Four audits. They're audited all the time. They have to be very transparent with the public, and they can't lie about what they have on the books. And I think, in my personal opinion, that is enough for Strategy in showing their reserves. I don't think Saylor is lying about the Bitcoin that he's been buying over the past 4 years. I mean, this isn't something they just started doing. This is something they've been doing for a while now. And I did see some of the research companies, I think it was Arkham, they've already found some of the strategy wallets where they can kind of already piece some of that together. So the Bitcoin is actually there. So I think the entire Bitcoin proof of reserves was just kind of just a lot of FUD that people were just throwing around on Twitter. And I think people are just trying to find anything to FUD Strategy. They don't actually have the Bitcoin. They're not actually buying. It's just trying to find anything. And I think that the everyday holder, if you're a shareholder Strategy, I don't think you should be worried about it at all. Obviously, that's not financial advice, but it's just my opinion.
So, yeah, this was a narrative that actually sort of came about before the conference actually started. Saylor did a meet and greet, and this, for those that don't know the context, it spawned from a question from an individual. Did Saylor have any plans to, withhold, sort of show, the public ledger of where their Bitcoin's being held? And he basically, long story short, said no and had his reason behind that. And that's sort of where this, debate came back from. And there's I look at it like this. I agree with Saylor's stance on it. And you can sort of take it down, not at a company level, but at a personal level. Most people aren't going to sit there and publicly advertise their bank accounts and how much money they're holding in their personal checking and or savings account. If they had the ability to do so, most would opt out. You'll have those outliers that do it. So that's sort of, from a personal level, how you can look at it. But then you're seeing, Jack Mallers took some shots, and there was some back and forth for, companies that are being more open and transparent surrounding, their actual proof of reserves. And the whole thought process is there's some security measures that need to be taken place, especially when you're the biggest. When you're the biggest, there's going to be copycats, and we're seeing that now. And when you're the biggest, if you think of any all-time great in sports, like, you're going to see someone take a shot at them. You're going to see, in the boxing world, Floyd Mayweather. A lot of people loved him. A lot of people hated him. But, at the end of the day, the numbers didn't lie. LeBron James, Jordan, Muhammad Ali, any of the greats in sports, you'll see eventually someone take a shot at them, and that's what's happening right now, but in sort of the business world, and there might be some jealousy, there might be some underlying, FOMO, trying to catch strategy, which that's still to be determined. We don't think a company can do that right now, but the future will tell. But that's sort of where all this is coming from. And Michael Saylor's stance was, it's just security measures, and they do go through the Big Four audit process. And for those that aren't aware of that overall process, let's take a look, and we can talk about this right now. And one thing before I share this up, this is something that got pulled together quickly from ChatGPT, and Michael Saylor actually talked about this in his keynote. And when you're trying to solve a problem, you can basically use these tool sets, give your your AI tool of choice, and you can get the right answer given to you very quickly. You don't have to rely on an expert. You can go to an expert after the fact if you educating yourself. But if you guys aren't using these tool sets to fully get a understanding of not just Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space, but anything in life, you definitely need to readjust how you're utilizing these tools. So just, food for thought there. But just to show this quickly. So this is a breakdown of the Big Four audit process. They do the audit planning and risk assessment, the asset recognition testing, asset valuation testing, asset impairment and revaluation testing, disclosure and classification review, and then the final audit opinion. So they have to go through this, on an annual basis, I believe. And the one thing to note right here is asset recognition testing. This step ensures the asset meets the criteria to appear on the balance sheet. Ownership verification. Confirm the company has legal title or control of the asset. For example, for crypto, they verify private key custody or third-party custodian confirmations. So that is what the average person does not really know about the Big Four audit process, because the average person doesn't go through it. And that's okay. So everybody's going to have their opinion, their uneducated opinion. But once you educate yourself and understand that if Saylor was actually lying about the Bitcoin strategy was holding, he would go to prison, because this is something that's federally regulated. It's not something that, he's just going to make up and just start making posts on Twitter like, hey, we bought this many Bitcoin. No, what he's posting has to go through a rigorous end-to-end audit test, and it has to, cross, check off all these boxes before, the SEC and whatever other regulatory body, agrees that this is, all on the up and up. So it's a little bit, we just seen the post from Swords of Valiant 7. Shout out to you. Jealousy sucks. But yeah, some of these companies, Saylor got a 4 or 5 year head start as far as their Bitcoin acquisition, Bitcoin treasury strategy goes. So, you're seeing, not crazy shots, but subtle shots, and trying to FUD down the price. And, you get to do your own due diligence, because if you just hear a certain person say, that Saylor really doesn't have all the Bitcoin, and you're a MicroStrategy holder, you'd be like, oh man, like they're right. And then go ahead and just sell your whole bag. And then at the end of it, regret it because it's an uneducated decision. So there's fear, uncertainty, and doubt that gets pumped in every single market. That's the way some markets are manipulated. That's the world we live in, when there's announcements that are made. And, for instance, as of late, when the tariffs went into place, what happened to markets? Markets tanked. And retail investors, they were running for the hills, selling off the positions, thinking that the S&P is going down. another X amount of points. Bitcoin's going down lower than what it's already went, while the big money is buying those dips. So you just gotta, be self-educated, self-taught, and understand when there's a communication, whether good or bad, and there's a part of that communication you fully don't understand, go to AI and ask the question and get the detailed answer of, this says it right here. They go through ownership verification. So he legally can't lie. He can't make this up to all his shareholders. So that's my take on it. It's sort of just fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and sort of a meaningless conversation. But, as the biggest player in the game, it's expected.
Yeah. And it does also, when he says like it adds a level of risk too, because if you do show your proof of reserves, everybody will be able to see those wallets. They can see when funds are coming in and out of those wallets. So they could potentially tie those wallets to maybe like Coinbase, or they could tie them to individual, like maybe a position at Coinbase, and they could maybe try to social engineer some way and say, hey, instead of sending those funds to Strategy, or instead of sending those funds to Coinbase, if Coinbase is custodying those wallets, send them to my address. So there is a level of risk that comes with the proof of reserve as well. So I think he is, when he said that, that made a lot of sense to me, just from a social engineering standpoint, to just be more cautious and not show the proof of reserves. So I don't, like you said, Sean, it's just a lot of noise. But did want to get into next. Texas just passed. Well, they didn't pass it yet, but the strategic Bitcoin reserve bill just got sent to the governor's desk, Greg Abbott, and he's probably going to be signing off on it probably early next week, or maybe even over the next couple of days over the weekend. So that's huge. I think that's the third state now, Arizona, New Hampshire, and Texas, to have bought in Bitcoin. And I think that we're in the early days of the state Bitcoin race, and we're going to start to see more states do this as Texas and as New Hampshire and as Arizona look very successful over the years to come. And people start to see like, hey, this is like, other states start to see, hey, this actually Bitcoin strategy has worked for these states. And one thing I think they'll start to pick up and say, hey, we need to do the same thing, kind of like what happened with marijuana. Marijuana was in Colorado, and then now it's, if I go to a state and marijuana isn't legal, I'm actually surprised now. But then also the interview that you had, Sean, with Dennis Porter, and I think he's talked a little bit about if these states just put 0.5 or 5% of their cash in Bitcoin over the next 5 to 10 years, they're losing. Like over the past 5 years, they lost, I think the number was like around 20% just to inflation. But if they would have put 5% of their cash into Bitcoin, that 20% would have went to zero. So I think a lot of states will be able to look at that 5 years from now and say, well, look at what Arizona did, look at what Texas did, look at what New Hampshire did. They were able to beat inflation just by putting a small percent of Bitcoin in their reserve. And I think it would help them out in that aspect. I think a lot more states will jump on board. So yeah, just wanted to mention that there. Let's see.
Yeah, it's as Dennis said, they were expecting to get a few this year, and I think they might be pleasantly surprised how many they end up ultimately getting, just because as you're seeing all these institutions, globally start to, get into the treasury game, the Bitcoin arms race, you can definitely see at a state level, the FOMO of missing out on this, on these strategic reserves on the state level. So everything happens at the state level, guys, and then every big initiative, happens at the state level, but then also that before it passes federally, some states got to get on board 100%. So that's what we're seeing there. Definitely exciting news with Texas, and shout out to everybody behind the scenes putting in work to get this stuff done.
Then we did want to go over Michael Saylor just had, at the Bitcoin conference, he talked about the 21 keys to wealth. I'm going to share here. Just wanted to talk through this. You mentioned it a little bit there with around the AI stuff, but he had 21 keys to wealth. Some of it had to do with, Bitcoin. Some of it had to do with just, just how you should live your life. So kind of just want to go through this quickly. Try and give your thoughts here. But like the first one here is clarity. Bitcoin is capital, perfected, programmable, and incorruptible. So
there's nothing like it. Most Bitcoiners already know this. This is, self-explanatory. It's, perfect programmable money. They can't print anymore. No more can be created. Anything can't be deleted. There's no one single issuer. There's no one single governing body that can shut this down. China, I think, actually, weirdly, recently, I think maybe while we were at the conference, they actually banned Bitcoin again, I believe. I think I've seen something along those lines. So governments across the world can try doing what they're going to do, but they're not going to stop the freight train.
It's every other year with China. Number two is Bitcoin will appreciate faster than every other asset because it is engineered to outperform. It's just true.
It's once again pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. This was from the closing keynote at the Bitcoin conference. For those that haven't watched this yet, Saylor talked for about an hour and went through these 21 items. 21 items that keys to wealth. But we went over this on our channel to ad nauseum, and basically Bitcoin since its inception has been outperforming every single asset known to man. We don't gotta dwell on that too much longer. I think everybody knows that.
Gotta add third one.
The body pod lets you easily understand.
And I think that just goes to say when you have to have courage when investing in Bitcoin and strategy, because it is the most volatile asset, and volatility shouldn't be scary. It should be something that you embrace, and you have to have courage when holding Bitcoin because it's going to continue to be very volatile to the downside. We will have bear markets in the future, and it's always going to be hard to hold for the long term, but you just got to hold on to it and continue to accumulate sats.
Well said.
Corporation. You can go ahead and go into this one, Sean. You are more powerful if you have the support of your family.
So this was sort of a twofold conversation what Saylor was having here. So if you understand Bitcoin thoroughly, done your due diligence, done your homework, and all of the above, you need the support from the people that are close to you. Significant other, spouse, girlfriend, husband, wife. If they aren't fully on board with what you're trying to do as far as dollar cost averaging, saving for a rainy day, saving for your family, there might be, some tension there in the house. It makes your Bitcoin and cryptocurrency investing journey that much more smoother when you can, have, the cohesiveness of, a family unit when going down this journey. So that's the one side of it. And the other side, I believe, he said cooperation, not corporation. Misread that there. So yeah, that's the family part. I thought it was a corporation. I think that's one slide though in the future.
And then just to mention here as well, like one thing I thought was interesting is like your kids, they have a lot of time. If you're in your 20s or 30s, you're kind of in the middle. And then you have your parents or grandparents who are older, and your parents or grandparents, they probably have more capital than you because they've been saving. If you are, if you have the opportunity to have parents who have saved over a long period of time, they could take that money, invest it into Bitcoin for the kids who have a lot of time, and because the grandkids who have a lot more time to accumulate the gains of that. So I just thought that was pretty interesting as well. Kind of just looking through the generations. The fifth one here is capability, master artificial intelligence. Sean spoke to this one earlier. And yeah, just using AI to make your life a lot better. Just going into ChatGPT and just asking it as many questions using the deep think mode. I'm gonna go ahead and go to the next one since you already covered this one, Sean. But 6 is composition. Construct legal entities that scale your strategy and protect your assets. I'll let you go ahead and talk about that one.
Yeah, so this was sort of the corporation, or you can have legal entities such as a business entity, whether you're a corporation, LLC. You can have trusts that own that. You can have LLCs that spawn off of that. And it's going to be different and tailored for every individual situation. But if you don't understand the complexities of these legal structures, once again, turn to artificial intelligence and start asking the right intelligent questions in deep think mode. Like, that's what you have to do, because you take less risk off yourself when these structures are in place. Once again, you're only an individual. An individual has a limited amount of tool sets available to be able to implement strategies such like the Bitcoin strategy that Michael Saylor is doing. If you're a business owner and you have cash flow, you can actually put Bitcoin on your balance sheet. You don't have to be publicly listed. How you do that? There's some education behind that. Once again, open up your artificial intelligence engine of choice and go ahead and ask those questions to start self-educating yourself. And then once you start to understand and have a overarching, you're not going to be an expert by any means, but you'll at least have some context to where if you do go sit down, with an attorney, you need to go, talk about some estate planning or get some of these business structures in place, then you can, just be more aware of what the attorney's telling you. And ChatGPT is going to know the right answers before the attorney tells you. So you already have an idea, like, this is what you're trying to do. This is how you're trying to do it. So you don't really just have to listen 100% to the expert, if you may, because even ChatGPT, once again, that's the most popular one in the States, that they're going to make you into an expert before you start to have that conversation. So understanding legal structures in business when it comes to doing things at a personal level and at a business level are two totally opposite ends of the spectrum. And you can do a lot more when you have the right corporate structure in place. So just remember that.
Yep. And just to add to that, Saylor literally said that he used AI to generate or to create STRK and STRF. He utilized the AI to do that. So it just goes to show you that an actual security asset or security was created from the thoughts of an AI through Saylor prompting it to give him ideas or just to think a little bit more deeply about how we can create these new products. And that's how Strife was born, and that's how Strife was born. So if, literal securities can be born out of AI.
And then one thing while we're on the ad, just to piggyback on that, look at Michael Saylor for who he is. Michael Saylor has attorneys on payroll, not just one or two. He has an entire staff of attorneys on payroll, and he has thousands of attorneys that he dealt with in the past. So he's getting all the information from these artificial intelligence engines and then going to the people that he's actually paying and say, look, I know you're the expert, but this is what I'm trying to do. This is how we need to do it. So let's get it done. And he literally said at the conference, if you get any pushback or they're scared and you already know all the bells and whistles because you're asking the right questions to these search engines, then get a new attorney or get a new accountant or get a new CEO, whatever that person that you're sitting there talking to, if they're, not acknowledging the fact that, look, I did all my due diligence, let's just execute, that's sort of how you can maneuver in the business world, once you use these tool sets in that capacity.
Well said. Next one, citizenship. This one is really important when it comes to taxes, or just like if you can live in a cheaper cost of living place and stack more sats. You have a lot of, there goes a lot into this. It's taxes, cost of living, and does the place where you live, do they offer freedom? Do they allow you to buy Bitcoin? There's a lot that goes into this, but citizenship is definitely important.
Yeah. Taxes is one thing. Where you're domiciled at is very important. Some jurisdictions offer better freedom than others. Some are more down the Bitcoin rabbit hole farther than others. So you really have to think long and hard of if, and it depends on what stage of life you're into, right? If you're, a 20-year-old and just getting started, where does it make sense for you to relocate to or stay where you're at? As far as what's the regulatory environment when it comes to Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? Are you able to freely buy Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? And then, the area that you're living in, can you optimize your cash flow based on the economics of that given geographic location? Are you able to optimize that? That's a 20-year-old. If you're married with kids, you're going to go at this in a totally different angle. If you're retired and trying to go relocate somewhere with a warmer climate, that sort of narrows down which warmer climates are you going to be looking at. So it's definitely important when entertaining where you want to geographically be.
And then we have 8 here. Civility, respect the natural power structures of the world. That is definitely a sailor slide. I'll let you speak on that one.
So one thing I think of when reading this is, like the natural power of fire. Fire has a lot of energy behind it. And if you maintain it, it can be utilized for good. It's the same thing with volatility, the same thing with these companies using leverage to, prop up their balance sheets. If you use fire in a good capacity, you can heat your home. But if it gets out of control and the natural power, you're not respecting it, it can burn the house down. So you can use that in a lot of different facets of life. That's just sort of my 2 cents there.
Definitely a sailor slide. Corporation. A well-structured corporation is the most powerful wealth creation engine on earth. I think Saylor is just speaking from his own personal experience here, but he also talked about people setting up their own individual corporations because it gives you a little bit more power than just doing everything as an individual. Even if you're a one-person corporation, there's things that you can do to potentially do things to get more Bitcoin or make your situation better. And he also talked about like where your corporation's at. That's going to change your situation of what you can and can't do. So he just talked a lot about just how corporations are better than being an individual, even if it's only one person in the corporation.
And we talked about this, but just one example. Just say you have a regular 9-to-5 job. In the U.S., there's a lot of other opportunities outside your 9-to-5 to make money. There's actually like a dog walking app. There's Uber Eats, all these different rideshare applications. A lot of people do that as an individual, but if you actually incorporate yourself, you get some tax advantages with write-offs and things like that. So when tax time comes around for the income that you earned, you can now show some losses and keep some of that income and continue to stack sats even stronger. So that's just one example there.
Yep. Well said. Let me go to the next one if I can find it. Day 1. Got another ad. Number 10 is focus. And I think it said, just because you can do a thing doesn't mean that you should. So, yeah, I'll let you talk on that one, Sean.
So there's a lot that's going on in this space. The space is, just forever just continuing to advance. And sometimes it's difficult to keep up on things because, you hear about a project or a token in the crypto space where your friend might have made a lot of money. And then you hop in and then the price pulls back. So just be cautious when you hear of, the new shiny thing, and do your due diligence. Just because you hear about something doesn't mean that you should. Everything that, sounds good always isn't going to end up being good. And that's a part of business too. When you start, going down your investment journey, you're going to have good investments and bad investments. And on the back end of that, what comes out of that is the wisdom that you get. So, and that comes in time. When you're a little bit younger, you might be just ready to rip and hop into anything that looks like an opportunity. But, just I think this slide here, just comes from, some wisdom that, Michael Saylor has over his decades of, running a publicly listed company. There's, ups and downs, with, going through that journey, as is there's ups and downs with, small business owners or, whatever endeavor you're looking at in your own personal life.
Definitely well said. Next one is going to be equity. Share your opportunity with investors willing to share your risks. If you can raise money to buy Bitcoin and you can make money for other people, whether it's your friends or family, they're going to be happy. You're going to make more money and you're going to build more Bitcoiners that way as well. As more people make money in Bitcoin and they understand the power of Bitcoin, if you can bring your friends and family along or anybody in your network along and you guys can raise money together or invest in Bitcoin in some way, you're creating more Bitcoiners and you're also winning at the same time. So it's a win-win.
Like-minded individuals, when you're with a group of people that understand, the objective at hand, and you guys can come together and create things, or come together, start a business, start a fund, whatever you're doing. It can make things that much more smooth sailing and take the risk off your shoulders as well, to share the risk.
Exactly. Next one here is credit. Give creditors certainty in return for their capital. Turn risk into yield. So yeah, you can use Bitcoin to give your creditors yield on their investment in you. So if somebody gives you some money that you want to raise from them to invest, you can invest that into Bitcoin, give them a yield, and you can kind of profit the difference there. Anything else to add there, Sean?
Yeah, I think this slide here might sort of tailor towards your own personal character. Always mean what you say and always execute what you say. By giving the creditors certainty, the people that are investing in you, whether it's a business partner, whether it's actually somebody giving you physical cash to invest for them, whatever the situation is, give them 100%, 1000% certainty that you are a man or woman of your word. And with that sort of says a lot about character, and they'll spread the word about your good business practice and that you're a stand-up person.
Good. Nice. Well said. Trying to find the next one here. 13 is compliance. Create the best company you can within the rules of your market.
I'll speak to this really quick. This sort of takes me back to the whole proof of reserves conversation that we had earlier. Staying compliant within the law. Saylor preaches this stuff. He's been preaching this stuff. If you want to do things the right way, you're not going to be a mischievous actor in a space. So being compliant, ensuring that you're on the up and up, getting your audits, and doing everything to the best of your ability, I think is what the takeaway is from here.
Next one is capitalization. Raise and reinvest capital relentlessly. Velocity compounds wealth. So if you can raise capital at cheap rates, whether you have a HELOC, you can get low interest rate loans. Probably take that and get some Bitcoin. Not financial advice, but Bitcoin is going up at a 30 CAGR. So if you can get anything underneath of that, you can basically profit that difference. Very similar to some of the previous slides. Anything else to add there?
Yeah. So when building wealth, if you find whatever that vehicle is that you can establish that wealth preservation, go at it with everything that you have. Be smart about it. Don't be mindless. But once you find out what that vehicle is, which we've been telling you guys for the longest, Bitcoin, Just whatever your personal life situation is, within means, you still gotta feed yourself. You still gotta make sure you have a home to live in. You still gotta, take care of your family. Um, but once you find out whatever that delta is for the investment money, just go all out at it. Sort of, Saylor's a prime example of, he's found that Bitcoin does what he's looking for, and he's not dipping his toe in the water. He's going, all in.
Yeah, he's raising billions of dollars at 0% interest. So he's putting all that into Bitcoin. 15 is communication.
It's absolutely
hit the volume on that.
Presentation on what's inside this can.
Communication. Speak with candor, act with transparency, repeat often. Yep, communication is just one of the keys of doing well in life. If you're good at anything, you got to learn how to communicate, because if you can't communicate what you're working on or what you're trying to raise money for, or anything that you're doing, even if you're the best, just for example, if you're the best engineer in the world, but you can't communicate what your idea is, you're not going to be a winner. And that's what he's talking about with speak with candor, and be transparent about everything so people don't think you're doing anything shady, and repeat often. And you can see he's doing that with strategy. He gives weekly updates on what he's buying. So anything else to add, or we'll go to the next one?
Yeah, go to the next one.
Okay, let's see. Find it here. Commitment. Allow yourself to be distracted. Talk about that.
Yeah, distractions are, the biggest hurdle for a lot of people. Over the years, we've talked to a lot of people, friends, family, strangers, about, the opportunity with investing and, and just investing in general, but specifically Bitcoin and, other investments of choice. And, when you're having the conversation and you see the excitement in the person's face and they're ready to go, some actually pull the trigger. But having that conviction to, withstand the peaks and troughs of the market fluctuations is a whole different animal, right? And then lifestyle choices as well. Some people, overextend themselves. So they have invested smartly, but then overextend themselves, and it forced liquidation because they, have to, pay for their kids' schooling, or, something, along those lines. They're, unexpected costs with the car. And now they're selling Bitcoin because, they, instead of them, cutting back on going out on a Friday night and spending, $100 at the bar, now they have to, cash out Bitcoin. So just, there's a ton of distractions in life, and life's going to happen. But, just sort of having some tunnel vision. I mean, still be a human being. Don't be a robot. Move with love, be kind-hearted, but, some distractions can easily be cut out, but it's just, sort of controlling of the mind. That's really what it comes down to.
Cool. Number 17 is competence. Deliver consistent, precise, and reliable execution. The Bitcoin Bros bring videos every single day to you guys. We've been doing it for about 4 years now, and it's not always been easy. So that's something we try to do in our own personal lives, and then I guess this is our business. So we try to keep you guys up to date with Bitcoin and crypto strategy, all that stuff. So try to be consistent in anything you do, because that's how you can breed any type of success. If you're not consistent, you're probably not going to do very well.
We'll speak on this. The Bitcoin conference was a great time. Like we had mentioned, we met a lot of great people. A lot of exciting things are going on in space. But one thing people don't really say about conferences is that they're really tiring. Like, you're on your feet, nonstop, 12 straight hours, like day after day after day. So today it was a pretty rough day after the conference. It was pretty sluggish. But we're still here, reporting to you guys, delivering some content. And that's just sort of, being consistent with what you're trying to do, whatever that is in life.
And I think that leads into the next slide perfectly. We changed the live stream from Thursday to Friday this week. But yeah, just I think this shows you guys just, try to do your best, be consistent, and if you have to adapt on anything, adapt and change as your circumstances change, as he says here.
Yep. Business is going to be a continuous adaptation process. Change is going to be the one consistent through it all, 100%.
And then evolution, build on your core strengths, leveraging your strongest assets. You speak on that one, Sean.
Everybody is good at something. Understand what you're good at. Understand what you're not good at. If you're good at, math and you're not that great of a reader, if you're going into a business setting or you're going into some type of endeavor that requires some type of investment, you might want to have maybe a partner that, can maybe help with the reading and writing. Not saying that you can't read, but some people can read faster, can analyze and interpret, when they're reading legal documentation or things of that sort. Maybe it's an accountant. You're an accountant, but you need an attorney to review contracts and things of that sort. So understand what you're good at, and whatever your strongest assets are, leverage them, bring them to light.
Yep. And then advocacy, inspire others to walk the Bitcoin path, become an evangelist for economic freedom. If you've been successful in Bitcoin or if you've been successful with strategy, you should be trying to help your friends. Some people don't want to hear it. Obviously, we get that. But if you can tell your friends about Bitcoin and strategy, or your family, try to do that because it's only in their best interest, and that will help them in their long-term future. So that's what we try to do. And obviously, not all your friends and family are going to listen, but that's okay. At least you're trying from your end.
Yeah, it's not all about money. What Bitcoin is it's an investment, but it conserves your purchasing power from the ever debasing of the dollar. Every dollar globally has been printed to high hell, and this is a life raft for some people. I know over the past 5 years, there's been a lot of people that have voiced to me in personal conversations of, things are getting more expensive due to what they call inflation, but it's the debasement of the dollar. And you try to give these people options, give them help for whatever their given scenario is. So it's more about helping one another and making it so that people can maintain through some of these tough times that are coming globally and are here.
Yeah, and I think that goes into the last slide where he says here with generosity, spread happiness, share security, and deliver hope.
There's an answer. You don't have to accept what the governments of the world do. You can, opt out. We post a lot of reels on Instagram that say opt out. You can opt out of the system and you can, buy Bitcoin. Now, you're still going to be a part of the system to some capacity and some extent, because obviously Bitcoin isn't legal tender globally. And there's new cool tool sets that are getting developed right now that allow, some Bitcoin loans and things of that sort that we, some were actually announced at the conference. But yeah, so I mean, when it comes to delivering hope, there's options. If you're going through anything, when someone loses hope, that's sort of a dark space to be in. So, you should never, it's easier said than done sometimes, but you should never try to let yourself get there, because there's always a life raft. And, it's that's good. Generosity is, to be a generous person is just, sort of self-explanatory there.
Yep. And that's it for the live stream today. For everybody that's tuning in, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube. New videos coming out every single day around Bitcoin strategy, and also follow us on Twitter. You can check out the live streams there as well. We're also on Rumble. Live streams will be every day, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Put any questions that you have in the chat, or you can actually email us. Our email will be in the description below. We appreciate every single one of you guys watching all the way. If you're still watching the entire live stream, I really appreciate you. So man.
Before you guys leave, still like, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, smash the like button, subscribe, just so you can get the latest and greatest content we're dropping for you guys. Once again, we do this every single day, and for this particular live stream, the more you like, the more you engage, the more people that can then see this. So that can help spread the message. So we appreciate all your guys' support, and we'll be doing this again on Thursday. We had to postpone this week due to the conference and travel and everything else. So Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern.
All right. Yep. We'll see you guys in the next one, and we're out. Thank you for tuning in.
Peace.